Today on Marketing Mavericks, SoLoMo. We break down social, location, and mobile. Why is context everything? And the death of the QR code. Coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth from Marketing Mavericks is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Marketing Mavericks, episode 25, recorded Thursday, October 2nd, 2014. SoLoMo. Welcome to Marketing Mavericks, the intersection of marketing and technology. I'm your host, Tonya Hall. We're going to talk today all about context, location marketing, and much more. How small and large businesses are connecting at a different level and building relationships better than they ever have before. We've got some return guests and some new guests and some people that we've known for a long time, and already a lively conversation even before the show got started. We've got joining us back Aaron Strout, who is the managing director at W2O Group. Welcome back, Aaron. Aaron now has a voice.
Are you not hearing my voice?
We are now.
Okay, good. I said hi, Tonya.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. And joining us is Schneider Mike. He is the Vice President of Marketing at Skyhook Wireless. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Tonya.
And
Right here.
Well, good. And I'm loving the little what do we call that?
Soul patch.
Soul patch.
Called the Sharpie patch.
I know. Well, you had to, if you were watching before the show, he actually just grew that in like a matter of seconds.
I actually could, just so you know, I could just go like this and it would happen.
Oh, we'll have to see that skill later. And we have Paul Mabray, who's a new guest to the show, and he is the CEO of VinTank. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So just so we kind of have some context to who you guys are. I know, Aaron, you've been on before, but W2O Group is an agency. You guys are in San Francisco. You're in Austin. Where else can we find W2O Group?
New York, LA, Chicago, London, Boston, you name it, we're there.
You're there. And what kind of work do you guys specialize in?
We're digital consultancy heavily underpinned with analytics.
There you go. And Mike, what is it that you guys do at Skyhook Wireless?
We're the worldwide leader in location. We've got location services for any app, device, ad tech, publisher, you name it, we got it. And you and Aaron co-hosted or co-authored a book some time back about location-based marketing for dummies, which has been very popular. And are you guys still selling that book? Is that still out there? Can people still buy that? Yeah, it's totally falling off the shelves. I mean, it's,
we are thinking about rebranding it QR codes for dummies. We feel like it may do better if we do that, but yeah, for right now it is still available.
Well, last week, my guest said they killed kittens, so
this is true.
Scott Stratton and Paul, welcome.
Yes.
For a first time to the show. You're just a neighbor close by. And what is it that you do at VinTank? What is VinTank?
We are a social media suite, mostly focused around social CRM for wineries, restaurants, and hotels.
Okay. Well, next time I think we were talking about this before the show. We'll have to have you in studio, and we'll have to have a little wine episode. Maybe
I think
have
we can
you
make that happen. Yeah.
So the context today is literally context. And we're going to talk about location marketing and how that's changed from the user experience that involves behaviors and attitudes and emotions and things that actually make what we're doing as marketers more personal and more important. So let's start with, Mike, this is something that you were really passionate about, and we talked about this before we actually put the show together. Why is it that you thought this was really important to revisit today?
I just think there's a lot happening in the world, and in terms of making experiences more relevant, and people giving up a lot of data, and it's in the news a lot, and so I think what's relevant about this is that there's a lot we can do as marketers and as advertisers and as app developers to give people a better experience based on the data that they're giving us. And I think, like, we talked a lot about it in 2008 and 2009 and 2010, and it seemed like, it was just like, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile, this is the year of mobile, it's year of the context, year of context, year of context. Well, context, it's now. I mean, we have it, and now it's time to talk about what we can do with it. So,
and you're right, we have talked about location marketing and that sort of thing in the past. And Aaron, now, Mike and I were talking about before the show, it's SoLoMo Co. And we hear all these, terms, and as marketers, we know what they are, but it's very jargony. What is SoLoMo Co? Break that down for us.
Well, I actually had to ask because I was not as familiar with the co part, although now that I'm thinking about it, the context makes total sense. So is the social, solo, location, M is mo is mobile, and then co is context. So SoLoMo has been a concept that's been out there for a few years. The context piece is a newly sort of integrated piece, and I think it's really what those three things are enabling. And it's something that Robert Scoble and Shel Israel wrote a book on recently. Mike's company just got sort of featured by Scoble as one of the companies that's really helping empower that. Paul's company, VinTank, actually got written into the book and written up in the book, and Scoble has talked a lot about them as really one of these major context providers. But I think it's this new lens of being able to, as Mike had said and you had touched on, it's a new ability to be able to give marketers to be able to connect better with their customers, because especially as we move more into this paid mobile world, this paid social world, if brands aren't doing things that are more relevant to people, it ends up being noise and often unwanted.
So how does that then relate to commerce? I mean, in the fact that, we're talking about, it's all about location and location-based marketing for dummies. And back in the day, when we first started talking about this, we were talking about apps like Foursquare and things that where we could, check in. How has that changed? I mean, how has that evolved? Mike?
It's evolved a lot. I mean, we went through a period where we were collecting the data and trying to figure out what it is we can actually do with it. And, there weren't many services out there that were actually using the gift of location to do something, or location or context, or your demographics or app usage or things like that to do the cool thing. They're very focused on building apps and building the app layer and building better user experiences. And now we're in situations where it's time to, we've seen a lot of the use cases built, and it's time to start to use the data that we have to differentiate and to, make app experiences more relevant in the place that they are. I mean, you've got one of the godfathers of context on the show right now in Paul. I mean, VinTank was doing stuff long before its time. The way that they figured out that you have to get into a niche, and the way you captured and the data that they've captured and the profiles they've been able to build and what they've been able to do for their customers is really revolutionary stuff. And now what Skyhook does is we have this thing called Context Accelerator that brings you a layer of that for any app. So you can do geofencing and personas and IP location to allow you to build dynamic user experiences today instead of having to wait way down the road to be able to do it.
So, Paul, Mike brings up a really good point, and I think especially when you think of industries that are more forward-thinking when it comes to marketing, and I mean, wine business is so different than so many others, and I'm going to drill down on that because when you think about how we purchase wine and the different types of users, how important is being digital in general to the industry? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've got certainly your basic wine buyers who just run into the grocery store, and then you have people who are very, very skilled, at and really want only specific types of wine. I mean, how does that work?
Well, I think the wine industry is still looking at Fee, Fi, Fo, Fum as our acronym that we're trying to get through. It's actually the last industry that hasn't been changed by the internet. It's a decade behind everyone else, but what the wine industry definitely has better than everyone else is it's a great tourist destination with a very strong layer of hospitality, and there's a lot of organic conversations about wine. It's one of those exponential industries. So as Mike was saying, originally we wanted to cut the path in interest graph listening and listen to every single word everyone ever said about wine, and that now has transcended into other industries where we can do that, and then wrap that around a person and determine who they are by what they say, essentially the context, and then as feature or as location has moved from a platform, as it originally started with like Foursquare and those other apps, it's now a feature set more than anything else, and it always should have been. And coupling that in and all that context together to say, hey, by the way, down the street is a guy who talked about your wine 2 years ago. He talks about wine 100 times. Invite him over. Or by the way, someone just checked in at your winery. They really like talking about wine. Maybe you should give them an enhanced customer experience.
How important is it to, and we've certainly seen other industries take advantage of this, whether it's the automotive industry where they're listening to, hey, I want to buy a car or a Ford or whatever it is, and dealerships are listening and manufacturers are listening. How well is the wine industry listening to people talking about wine on the internet?
You know, it's better than most. I mean, we have 5,000 wineries that are using our software, so that's pretty good. But it's still, we're pushing the rope. We're teaching them that this is a huge catalyst for them, and that they need to pay attention. Like it's almost like a digital answering machine, and they need to at least listen to the customers, if not respond to them. So, as it relates to other industries, again, they lag everyone else because there's no key catalyst to make them pay attention. If you look at industries like even the restaurant industry, they've had Yelp or they've had OpenTable, or you look at the hotel industry, they've had Expedia.com or TripAdvisor. The wine industry doesn't have anything like that that's changed it significantly.
So what made you decide to actually pursue this as a, there's certainly lots of options out there to, as a marketer, create something. Why did you go for this niche?
It probably started with the conversation that we had before. I've been in the wine industry a long time, started working at wineries, and while I enjoy wine, it's not really the passion that I have. It's the passion of this industry that hasn't been changed by digital. And if I could be at least some small part of that catalyst, it was definitely an aspiration. And that's been my career for 2 companies, 2 CEO tenures. But now I'm looking at how do we use social CRM, social context to enhance all customer experiences in outside the wine industry, in retail, in brand marketing. And I think that's context is the future of everything. The world is flat thanks to Google. And whether you're adding location context, whether you're adding interest graph context, whether you're getting interaction graph or commerce graphs, these are all elements to help you better serve your customers.
Aaron, how important to your clients is some of the software and tools that are out there, whether it be, outside the wine industry or whatever types of clients that you have? I mean, are they using tools like Paul's or more? I mean, how do you guys engage that, and are the clients using that as well?
Yeah, interestingly enough, we've actually had some conversations with a few of our clients about using VinTank because it is such a natural. I will say that in the retail space, as well as in the sort of leisure industry, a hospitality industry, as Paul mentioned earlier. So think of hotels, certainly with restaurants, but then retail. I think it's critical because you can really impact directly what the experience is going to be, and you can kind of grab them when they're in the vicinity. I think that with other clients, we've looked at what could we be doing maybe more around the analytics or the data, so location-based listening. But I do feel like anybody that sells a service or a product to anybody, whether it's B2B or B2C, certainly could benefit from having the right context and having a little bit more insight into location, especially given the amount of time we all spend on mobile devices now, whether it's with our iPad or tablet, our phones. Increasingly, that's the place where we're sort of turning to first. For social, it's where we're going to get Yelp reviews. It's where we're going to look things up on Google. So it really is playing an increasingly critical role, B2C or B2B.
Well, and you see this huge increase in not just mobile in general, but you see it tablets over phones, even people making purchases. And I think, I've heard you say before on this show, Aaron, that not everybody needs to have an app, and you don't really need that. But so how important is being connected and listening to your customers through an app, or how would you encourage businesses actually consider approaching this as we're getting ready into the holiday buying season?
Well, it's, without making this an infomercial about Mike Schneider's company or Paul's company, it's one of the reasons why being able to work around an app, using some of the existing technology that's on your phone and being able to maybe bake it into things like their social profile or baking it into your web presence. I have railed against, sort of this app infobesity, if there's such a term, a little nod to Derek Peplau there. But the key there is that, unless you have a really compelling reason to do an app, meaning your Starbucks and people are using you on a daily basis, or maybe we talked on, I think, the last show about Walmart and their savings catcher, and that they had a valuable value proposition there. It's really hard to think that you're going to get people to use your app regularly. And so, one, it creates a barrier in them downloading it. Two, reminding them to use it is really difficult. So if you can kind of do that end around and use some of the technology that Skyhook or VinTank are bringing to the table, it makes it that much easier to be able to start to collect this information and or communicate and respond with your clients.
Mike, how does Skyhook really play into this then? I know you've been, quietly working for a while, and now we're starting to hear a lot more about your company and how you engage and help people, with that location context. I mean, where does Skyhook play in?
We focus on two things primarily. We focus on helping companies deliver relevant content wherever their users need it, and then we focus on building more dynamic user experiences. So, as I said before, it's apps, but it's also we're working with ad tech. We just had a company called Session M partner with us, and they're one of the largest loyalty networks and advertising networks on mobile. And there's a company called Mediata out of Australia that's seen ridiculous results with us. Publishers, devices, wearables and such. But where we play, what we do is we have an SDK, and in the SDK is I'm popping my K's. SDK. Sorry. You basically can use the SDK to enrich your data, and we have Skyhook cares a lot about anonymity. So basically, what we do is we look at a device and the device behavior, and we allow you to create geofences. And geofencing is a concept that sounds easy. It's just an imaginary barrier around some place that when you go into it, something cool can happen. For instance, your app could go into store mode, or the easiest use case is that, if you go near Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks could say, oh, hey, come over to Starbucks, don't go to Dunkin' Donuts, don't do it. But we have that technology, and we also have personas, and we look at device behavior, and we say, if they go to airports a lot or check into hotels and that kind of stuff, we help them. That's a business traveler, and if somebody goes to coffee shops a lot, that's a coffee lover, and we have we have all these personas that users can use or that developers can use, and what that does is it gives you a higher level of intelligence within your app, and you can analyze behavior, and then once you learn where people go, you can start to think about things like, maybe I should build an experience for that kind of place. If I have an app and I know that people are going to retail stores or coffee shops, maybe I should make a specific, something specific for it. And one of the examples is an app called CardStar. And what CardStar does is it allows you to take those loyalty tags that are on your keychain that you have to whip out every time you go to check out when you go to CVS or Safeway or Wegmans or wherever it is you go. And it allows you to store all those on your phone. Well, what they found was that that people were having just as much trouble on the phone as they were with their keychain, because you still had to flip through and find the loyalty card when you open the app. So what they did with us is it's a really simple use case. They just said when you're inside a store, use our geofencing technology just so when they know you're in a CVS, then the CVS card should just pop up when you open the app, and it makes it easy to scan. And they've seen some pretty interesting results from it. 2 times lift in average session length, because people actually want to use the app now, where before they were a little bit frustrated, and they knew that, and 57% growth in daily active users and 79% growth in sessions per day. And they've opened up opportunities for new revenue streams as well, because, there's opportunities to do, to serve deals or whatnot, because now the user's actually getting the thing that they want much faster, so they have time to do something else.
So are they able to purchase through the app as well? Is there a transaction process?
Not in this particular app. It's for loyalty cards. But you know, that's a use case that we've talked to several companies about, being able to, you know, if there's a company that isn't working with us, but they're called Asda. They're a retail. They're a grocery store in the UK, and they have two different modes. They have home mode, where you basically build lists, and you can use your you can scan products and it'll build shopping lists for you. And then when you go into the store, it has a whole different mode, which is, you know, basically it helps you find products and things of that nature. It's trying to help you do the thing that you want in the place that you're in, and reduce the friction to getting value.
And this bypasses, I take it, you know, actually doing some of what you guys talked about in the past, which is what Foursquare tried to do when you had location in social networks like Facebook, or maybe what Twitter is trying to do to push people to Amazon. I mean, this is outside of a social community. This is just through an app. How do you get people to download or use the product? Is this on the Safeways of the world, on the brand side? I mean, how are people finding out that this is the way that they want to, you know, be smarter with their purchasing or find information?
We're going on a lot of shows like Twit TV to tell people about dynamic user experiences. And I mean, it's part of it is like, people don't know that the technology is out there and that it's affordable and that it exists. So we have to get the message out there first. And you know, you can go to Skyhook and you can create a My Skyhook account, and you can start a project, and you can evaluate it and see if you like it before you do your big things with it. But and you know, we're a company that, you know, has people that are ready to help. We really want to see this thing work. We don't have another business model. We just, you know, this is what we do. We don't try to sell ads, or that's, you know, our customers can do that. We don't try to sell hardware. Our customers do that. We don't try to sell. I mean, we have our software, and it's really a symbiotic thing. So, not to make this an infomercial, but that's the value prop. I mean, that's what we're trying to do.
So really what we're talking about is making it easier for the consumer. When we look at, you know, the way that we're using the internet, we talked about, you know, mobile and purchasing, and we're entering the buying season, and people are going to you know, purchase based on recommendations and that sort of thing. How does this type of software actually help people understand what others think, whether it's recommendations? Is there a Yelp-like feature?
To me?
Yes.
Well, it's not that there's a Yelp-like feature to it, to what we do. It's just that we have the tools that would allow anybody to build the kinds of features that they want. So if Yelp was using us, which Yelp, call me maybe, I mean, they could. There's all kinds of interesting things that they could do from a personification, and they could take our personas, and they could take business travelers, and they could look at the kinds of content that they or the kinds of restaurants that they like, and they could bring those two things together and say, all right, well, I know Aaron Strout's a business traveler. He loves sushi, and when he's in a city that he doesn't go to often, like Seattle, he's going to want to know a sushi place. So when he opens the app, it could say, hey, sushi places around you, or something like that, just to make it an experience that, you know, is relevant to Aaron as soon as he opens the app. Another thing you could do is you could think about whether someone's on Wi-Fi or not, and whether they're in their hotel, and as they're on Wi-Fi, you could capture information, and you can serve it to them when they're in airplane mode. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that Yelp could do with our technology, but we're not the guys who actually do it. We have the technology that enables it.
And Aaron, since Mike's taking the liberty to talk about you and use you as a case study and example the whole time, feel free to, you know, jump in. And that goes for you too, Paul. Jump in anytime.
Aaron's so shy.
So he's so shy.
He looks all like Hawaii Five-0, all laid back and cool. What's up? Hang loose.
What's up? Well, truth be told, you know, we talked about my running last time. I ran this morning, and so I need to like be in the short sleeve shirt when I'm post-run coming into work, and it's still 85 down here in Austin. So I had to go Hawaii 5-0, even though it's probably 45 in Boston and maybe 65 in Napa today.
We have a little Don Ho action happening here. So how does context and behavior and attitudes and emotions and tracking all kinds of data that we're looking at when people, I mean, okay, so there was the Facebook study where, we talked about that several shows back where, they got in a little bit of hot water because they were basically playing with our emotions. And but we're tracking that kind of thing on the internet. We're digitally tracking how people feel about products and how they feel about certain things. How important is that, Aaron, to your clients? I mean, do you guys look at that? And does that impact your marketing direction and the types of ways that you decide to implement campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, analytics is sort of the lifeblood of what we do. And so the more information we can have and to provide to our clients, the smarter they are and the more we can be targeted. And I think this is the key, and this is really where the context piece comes in. You don't want to be creepy. I saw someone in the chat room talking, how creepy are analytics. They can be very creepy if you overdo it. If you're delicate about it and make it seem like, just like good salespeople in a store know what hot buttons are, they're sort of psychologists, amateur psychologists, what's going to work when you're reaching out to people. And so I think the more psychographic information, the more demographic information, the more context around where they are, where they're interacting with you, the better experience you can provide. Now, the key is it's incumbent upon the brands to be able to deliver that experience and to deliver a value proposition that's great enough where people say, yeah, I actually want you to advertise to me or talk to me. And I think if you look at, the Super Bowl as an example, it's one of the few places where live advertising is still welcome because it's become kind of like this beauty pageant of ads. So the advertisers are really trying to entertain versus sell to. I think social has become that Super Bowl year round for a lot of brands because they realize they have to be more interesting. They have to be storytellers. And so the more context you can have around who it is you're trying to reach, the better the stories you can tell and the more relevant they are and the more targeted you can be.
What are we learning from, you mentioned the Super Bowl and immediately, and you talked about Seattle earlier, Mike, but Richard Sherman, one of the most tweeted moments or the most social moments where people got very emotional about the end of the game, and Richard Sherman made a comment, and I personally didn't see anything wrong really with it. I actually was kind of a Seattle fan. I stayed there through the entire month of January. So I was actually really excited, but it got a lot of heat for that. And it had a huge impact. How did that impact us as marketers? I mean, does that matter to us? Do we care what people think about that? I mean, did that impact whether or not he's going to be a sponsor for a brand? Did that make him more popular? And what did we learn from something that was really a hot button on the internet? Aaron?
Paul, I'll take this one, and Paul, you can chime in.
Okay.
I think the biggest impact it has is it sort of cut two ways, right? For people that like that kind of in-your-face bravado, it was great. I didn't mind it per se, although I remember tweeting a little bit about it or maybe Facebooking about it. I think it was a little bit in poor taste, but you were seeing raw emotion with him, and I think that's the thing that with some people that really resonated. With other folks, especially folks who were 49er fans, it was the last thing they wanted to see, especially because he was being disrespectful to Michael Crabtree. And I think in athletics, while we expect people to sort of leave it all in the field, we're not expecting them to be so authentic and raw that, they're doing a slash sign and saying that someone like Michael Crabtree was just mediocre. So I think from a live TV perspective, it was exciting. It created emotion. From a brand perspective, it hasn't hurt him in the long run. I think he's backed off a little bit and apologized, but he's done some things like that. But I would love Paul to, get your take on it as well.
Yeah, Paul, jump in. You're a 49ers fan, I'm taking it, because you're here.
I am, but I missed the game, so I apologize. I have 4 children, so I was busy doing something completely different. But going back to that, I think it's incumbent on the tools to deliver this data in a way that's manageable. I mean, there's so much data, that phrase big data. How do we take into bite-sized servable pieces and make sure that, let's say, the customer service rep at a Gap has enough data that doesn't make them creepy, but enough to empower them to do better service, or at a winery or at a restaurant? And what are the key context signals we should deliver as bite-sized pieces in order for them to make good decisions? And I think that's where the whole technology industry is trying to get to, is delivering actionable context, not just dumping everything on them. Because most small businesses, most medium businesses, and even large businesses don't have enough resources or time, or even if they had the resources or time, you can't process all that information fast enough to do the service.
When you look at, just going off this whole Super Bowl, Richard Sherman, you've got Russell Wilson, who is, I think, Richard Sherman's polar opposite from the standpoint of branding. It's done really well for him, but, he didn't get nearly the conversation. So is it more important for a brand to be mentioned even in a derogatory way, or is it like the old school, any press is good press, or do brands really have to be careful? Are we measuring that?
You got to be careful. I mean, you're out there.
You're not careful, Mr. Sharpie. You're probably the least careful.
Be careful with your brand.
Personal branding. Yeah.
I mean, why? I mean, we didn't see that with Chick-fil-A. We saw actually a huge spike in their business. We've seen that time and time again. It doesn't always hurt to be talked about. It's just being a part of the conversation, right?
I'm going to disagree with that a little bit. I think that it is good sometimes to be part of the conversation in the right context. I think that if your brand is, being seen as, let me give you an example. So JCPenney last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, did a campaign, and I heard their director of social and PR talk about this at an event recently, and it was called Tweeting with Mittens. And so they were tweeting out of the JCPenney handle, and because it looked like they were tweeting with like they had mittens on, it looked like they were drunk. And so they put it out there, and people are starting to respond to it, saying, "What is wrong with JCPenney?" The CMO is calling the director of social and PR, knowing that this campaign was going on, but starting to get some cold feet, saying, "Holy crap! We need to do the reveal immediately." People are starting to tell us that we're drunk. So by the time they get done, it was apparent. Thank you for rolling the B-roll here. They basically revealed that they were sort of partnering with the Olympics to do this campaign, and they were doing this Tweeting with Mittens. So I think it ended up being sort of a fun way to be able to be controversial, but to do that reveal. I think if you're Domino's a few years back, we have a couple of employees spitting in pizza and doing videos about it. They made a good thing out of that eventually, but there was probably a good 3 or 4 months where they really were under fire heavily. And I think those are situations where that's not a good thing.
I mean, someone like JCPenney, they really needed to do something. I mean, their business is down. Their numbers are down, and they're starting to get to a place where social media can be a great place for them because they have a loud voice. But then they needed to say something that was different than what they were trying to do before. They tried to make a big change, and they alienated their audience. And they're still, I still don't really know exactly what JCPenney's trying to do, but they have to do something. So I mean, some brands like Coca-Cola can do whatever they want. I mean, they've got marketing dollars coming out of everywhere, and they're everywhere. They can do whatever they want. But other brands need to. You do need to pick your spots as you're trying to build your brand. And if you want to be a controversial brand, then you can afford to be in those kind of conversations. But not every brand should be that. I mean, if you're marketing to if you're marketing to a certain segment that doesn't play to that sort of rhetoric, then you can't be involved in that conversation.
And
I mean, Mike, sorry.
Go, jump in, Paul, yeah.
No, I think that, it's just like politics. You can play to your base, right? So the Chick-fil-A played to their base, whoever supported them, and whereas other brands are not as good at doing that, when you jump away from that and you alienate your base, it causes problems, So they supported that by doing that in their campaign. It's just like politics.
And a lot of what we're talking about, these kind of pivotal moments, I think, in social media happen on Twitter. Not everybody's on Twitter, but that certainly makes it to other, Reddit or, Facebook, or maybe one day Ello, if that ever, I don't know what's going to happen with that. But that's where it seems to, I mean, let's just ask, are you guys even on Ello?
I'm on Ello. I'm actually Elloing right now because I don't want anybody to know what I'm talking about.
Schneider Mike is huge on Ello. He's got 40 followers.
He's one of the top followers on Ello, yeah.
Hello.
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 Yeah,
Hello.
I still don't get it. I don't know. Anyway.
If you talk about Ello on Twitter, a unicorn dies, and if you talk about Twitter on Ello, I think it comes back as like a blast ended screwed or something. I'm not sure what the heck is going on.
Chupacabra on Ello, I think, but that's about it.
Exactly. That's what happens.
I don't know what the secret sauce is. I'm still waiting to see, but I'm there.
There is no secret sauce, Tonya. There's no secret sauce.
For me, Ello is like, what is this? What you people are excited about now? stripped down social media that looks sort of like Tumblr with too many fonts? I mean, what is
Isn't that the place where that everyone ended up in The Walking Dead, Elo? Or I'm not sure.
Actually, you know what I think it is?
Yeah, I think it is.
Beware Elo.
It's the next clerk, man. I mean, it's that exciting.
So, Twitter, right? We always talk about Twitter. This, a brand or a company comes out and they actually tweet something in a moment of crisis, or they tweet something bad and then it makes the news, and it all seems to happen. How important is the Twitter in the whole digital, equation? Is the Twitter, not everybody's on Twitter. Is that really important in the whole marketing scheme and where we start listening?
I don't think you need everyone on a platform to make it powerful. If you have the right people that are relaying it out, which Twitter has significantly, it doesn't matter what amplification platform, because it's going to cross the invisible line to Facebook and Reddit and everywhere else. I think what makes Twitter and also probably Instagram, and not quite as much, is that these are very Boolean networks. Either you're on and you're open and everyone gets a chance to see it for a second, or you're off. And those are really important to marketing companies versus the walled gardens of Facebooks or Elo. We need visibility to make something happen for sure.
Well,
Paul needs to work on his accent, by the way. He didn't really do the English. Hello.
Hello.
You're like, hello.
Hello.
Like, yeah, a mix between a Hispanic and Scandinavian accent. I don't know.
I think that was it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So how is it that these social networks that are popping up, and Path, I remember, Mike, back in the day, you were like, oh, you have to get on Path. Path is great. And I never did get on Path. I know. And people are still using Path. And, we were talking.
Feature's cool. A new business feature they just released is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, so in Path, you can talk to business through Path, which is something that Foursquare desperately needs, in my opinion, the feedback loop. The customer checks in Foursquare, the business can't talk to them. That's absurd.
What's the future of Foursquare?
What you can actually do with this feature that Paul's talking about is you can message a business from Path. So if you have the location, and let's say you wanted to get reservations at Sports Hello, which is one of my favorite restaurants in Boston. You can actually just message the business and some magic happens, and it's really akin to what Boston-based company Talk2 does, except they have a much bigger audience than Talk2.
We asked this question a while back. Are we going to go closer and closer to private networks like Secret or Path Facebook's not going anywhere, right? I mean, we're still going to be using these open social platforms like Twitter and Facebook, right?
The reason
those
that
are features. Those are go on.
Everybody has an opinion on that one.
I can talk all day about this stuff.
I think those are features, not platforms. I think that's the problem with those different. And secondarily, from every social media platform in history, their biggest failure is that they all start consumer to consumer, and then they wedge the business in post facto and trying to figure out how to make it work. And at the end of the day, it's the business's ability to interact with the customers in some ways that generates the revenues. And they're all of them are still struggling with how to do that exactly right. And they're changing constantly.
The reason Elo's even getting mentioned right now is that there's a perfect storm of events that happened, and they happen to be there in the right place at the right time. I mean, a lot of users on Facebook for various reasons, some including persecution, did not want to use their real names on Facebook, and Facebook decided to do innocuously. They just decided at one point to do a crackdown because they found a bunch of people using fake names, and so they cracked down on the wrong people, and some people really got hurt. Like people in countries where homosexuality is illegal were being forced to use their real names, and that doesn't work for them. So Elo came along, or Elo was there as the simple social network that doesn't do that stuff to you and doesn't, so a lot of people left, and there was actually a public apology from a Facebook executive. If you want to find it, it's in Robert Scoble's feed. I could also probably find it too, but that happened yesterday as a result, because Elo is starting to get some traction. Will it have long-term longevity? Probably not. It's with every social network, the biggest problem is scale. And what people are going to find is that Elo, as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, is going to have more and more and more fail whale. And I just don't see us having a space for another social network. I think Facebook will fix their problems and everybody will come back.
But Facebook launched when we had MySpace. So isn't it possible that Facebook could go away? I mean, it's not impossible.
Facebook was a different experience than MySpace, wasn't it? I mean, Facebook Friendster is another example too, right? I think Facebook has critical mass at this point, and they're not going to go away. I mean,
well, there's an incumbency associated with that where you pick where you're going to be. Google Plus has been fighting this for 2 or 3 years now. It's a great platform. I think it's an awesome platform, but it's struggling to pull you from doing your stuff on Facebook, and I'm included in that. I want to go to Google Plus to do more, but I see more stuff on Facebook, so I spend more time there. It's just difficult to start a new platform when the critical mass and the momentum is behind it.
Google Plus really isn't a place for marketing, right? I mean, it's more of conversations and hangouts, and it seems like it's just more of a functional tool. And businesses use Hangouts. I think it's a great place to get information. You don't have, some of the other issues that you might have, bullying and that sort of thing on Google Plus. But yeah, hasn't picked up the traction. And I remember, Mike, when it first launched, you were a huge Google Plus advocate. Do you stand in that same place today?
Social media makes me unhappy. No, I don't use Google. I was just thinking about Aaron and Paul tweeting with me. I don't tweet with them very much anymore because I've noticed that as my clout score increases, my happiness decreases. So these guys have such high clout. I'm gonna end up being unhappy. No, I don't use a lot of Google Plus. I've tried to kind of take my social networking use down and make it a little bit more targeted and spend more time in the real world and talking to people and building things, which is what I really love. I really love the fact that I'm back in tech and getting to build the stuff that I've been talking about for such a long time. So that's kind of what I'm using them for these days.
So Aaron, I know that you're still a big fan of MySpace. You still like, MySpace people. No,
huge.
But where is it from an agency perspective? Where do brands need to focus? I mean, I mentioned Google Plus. I mean, when you guys are working on a strategy for clients, do you factor in social networks, or how do you approach the listening and looking at behaviors and emotions and trends and the things people are talking about? How do you approach that whole social strategy?
Sure. So I love the question. We start with analytics, right? And so the way the analytics starts is we like to look across 10 channels of online, which include things like news and search and photo sites, micro blogging, which is really, for all intents and purposes, Twitter, blogs, you name it, right? And what we like to do is see where our company's clients are, where their competitors are, and where they can really take advantage of that. And we also try to align that with what they're good at, what they're staffed for. And so really when we do a strategy, we're trying to widen it and make the lens a little bit bigger and looking more at a digital strategy, which includes social versus just social. But a lot of the information that's out there, Paul nodded to this earlier, you can actually harness that and find out what are people saying somewhat unaided about the brand or about the space. And it's equally important to actually look at the white space. If you're in, let's say you're a cloud provider, what are they saying about private cloud or hybrid cloud? And, are you interacting with that and creating the right content and conversation? So we don't really care what the channel is, and we try not to sort of turn out any channels right out of the gate through personal bias. We talk to B2B companies, and we don't say, you shouldn't do Facebook because that's not B2B. What we say is, let's find out where the people that matter to you are. And actually, that could be a different ecosystem. It could be reporters. It could be bloggers, right? And if a lot of those folks are hanging out on Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr, then that brand should strongly consider having a presence there. And it should be the right presence. But it really is critical to sort of be somewhat agnostic and really let the data inform you of what the strategy is.
Well, and we've always looked at people who are actively mentioning our products or the products of our clients and who's actually talking about it and who are brand ambassadors. That's still a term, and we still use that, right?
It is.
Yes, it is.
And so all we've done is try to get better at listening. And I know I've heard, Paul, you talk about, how you in your software has competed with, Radian 6, which I remember in the day was, certainly I thought, certainly the leader in this. How do you compare with other listening tools or other types of ways to monitor what people are talking about and how often they're talking about a certain type of product?
Sure. So listening, I think, first of all, Radian 6 is a great platform. It always is, but it's still the blue chip. But I think listening is more of a commodity, and it's going to continue to become more of a commodity as opposed to a key feature. It just should be ticket to ride. And the way we've beat Radian 6 is that we look at a complete interest graph. Instead of just listening to keywords like Radian 6 is and tuning it in. And for example, with VinTank, every single word about wine we're listening to. And then whenever you say a word about wine, we wrap it around your persona so that we know who you are by what you say. And we're doing that with restaurants and with travel and with other industries and verticals, and looking for other associative interests that we want to attach to your bio to create context. It's the only way to beat these things is to make it so it's digestible to the businesses, and you have to know exactly what they're looking for, not looking for when someone's talking about a beach, or if they're looking at new shoes, but you're a restaurant. That doesn't help you as a small business be actionable.
And, going back to, again, platforms where people are trying to be more private, and even on Facebook, when people, implement more private settings, or, they completely disconnect. Like you said, Mike, you're not as active. How important is privacy to take into consideration when you're trying to market? I mean, are we going to continue to try and go more private? Are we going to disconnect a little bit more? Are we going to unplug a little bit more? And how is that going to impact marketing?
I think you're going to see it go two ways. I think it's going to bifurcate. There will be obviously more privacy settings from all the backlash, but then there's going to be the continued slew of just Boolean networks, you're private or you're public. And the reality is both have their place. The latter doesn't allow people to get contextual information about them. And it kind of reminds me of, I don't know, we're all old enough to remember when Amazon first threw up the, if you like this book, you might also like this book. And everyone freaked out about privacy. Oh my God, they're looking at what I'm shopping at. It's horrible. And I don't think any of us in this chat room can imagine a day going to Amazon when they're not giving me a good recommendation based upon what I've already bought, what I've looked upon.
Yeah, I got recommended location-based marketing for dummies just the other day. I mean, my life changed.
Yeah, I'm sure that happened. When are you guys going to write a new book? I keep asking Aaron, and he just avoids the question. But are you guys going to, location has changed for dummies, or what's your location? What's the next book?
I'm writing. We're currently working on soul patches for dummies.
Yep.
As we speak.
QR codes for dummies. Seriously, QR codes are going to be huge in 2015, especially fax-based QR codes.
You heard it here first.
My favorite website, my favorite QR code website for everybody who wants to see just some great examples is pictures of people using QR codes.tumblr.com.
That's sad. This is very sad. So, and by the way, that Sharpie, if you had any other color, that would have probably even been, I don't know, better? I don't know.
Purple.
I have a Sharpie.
Outline it in something. Yeah.
As we're entering into the buying season, and businesses are trying to figure out, okay, how can I capitalize on this? How do I monetize the web? And especially, I've heard, Paul, you talk about this in the past, that it's listening, right? But not every business can really afford to do that and put a team of people in place. So what are some simple ways that maybe small businesses who are trying to capitalize and not clutter the market, but really focus on the people who want their product or service? How should they do that?
I don't think that that's even true anymore. I think that the price point and the delivery tools that are happening for small businesses are increasingly getting better. And it's becoming a cost of business to listen at least at the very smallest of about your brand. And then the key is all the tools have to get better at delivering that in bite-sized pieces so that anyone, whether they have social acumen or not, can actually act upon that. And whether that's actually using it for pinpoint marketing, give me all my Facebook fans who have liked me 10 times or more, have spent over $100, and give them a mass email, or to a single serving concept where Paul just walked into a winery, he checked in, by the way, tasting room manager, he really likes wine, especially Pinot Noir. Go talk to him about Pinot Noir. That kind of context has to be delivered in small bite-sized pieces. So the tools are going to get better to do that for small businesses. I talked to Susan Etlinger about this a lot at Altimeter, and I said, all this great analytics are key. They're the foundation of everything. But until we can deliver them in ways that small businesses can use social media effectively, social media won't be a pervasive marketing channel.
How are we monetizing differently? Amazon's trying to monetize through Twitter. There are new devices, wearables. What's the next level of monetization for businesses on the web?
I don't think they've even monetized it correctly yet. So I think everyone's trying to jump ahead to the next thing when we haven't even built the right sandcastle. And that's not to the fault of businesses. It's the social media platforms change as fast as we can catch up with our marketing techniques with them. I mean, I'm sure that Facebook changed while we were here on this conference.
I think the next order is branded experiences that that really weave tightly into the app. So, instead of just saying, okay, I'm gonna use context to show you the most relevant ads, it's really making all those experiences feel like content and being a part of the experience versus just another banner ad or another coupon for $10 off.
Mike, you posted in the chat room pictures of people scanning QR codes, which is awesome.
.tumblr.com. Here it is.
Wait, where are all the posts?
I know. What's up?
That's the best. Nobody uses QR codes. Because you know why? Do you know why no one uses QR codes? Everybody's like, oh, why don't they work? Because it was too many things to do to get to a QR code. And then all the marketers who got the 3 people to scan a QR code gave you like a coupon or took you to a website. They didn't give you a free pony, a rocket ship, like a fighter plane. None of that stuff happened. And that is what would have made QR codes work. It's not that it was a bad idea. It's just that you didn't give anybody anything good. You're your own worst enemy, marketers, sometimes.
I want a unicorn. Just saying.
If you scan a QR code, you'll probably be the only one that gets a unicorn. So you'll be the only one on that Tumblr post for sure.
Yep. It's true.
Aaron, you posted QR code effectiveness. That's something you've written about, and to Google that, you posted that in the chat room. What would we find at QR code effectiveness?
Well, I've effectively become the antichrist of the QR code movement, and I'm not kidding. I mentioned on the show before, I write a monthly column on location and mobile marketing, and I wrote this post, Death of the QR Code, I think probably a year and a half ago. Last year, it was the most popular post on Marketing Land. This year, it's like always my sort of second or third on my monthly statistics, most visited posts. And so, sorry, QR codes, but you can't sort of avoid people checking out this post. I did try to be balanced about it. I think to Mike's point, I did point to the fact that marketers failed QR codes, and I am a marketer at heart. It's the same thing. It's the reason you had asked a few minutes ago, Tonya, about Foursquare and where it's going. I think the biggest issue with Foursquare is, part of it was Foursquare's fault, but part of it was by Foursquare not enabling and having conversations with marketers earlier. The whole rewards, the whole active check-in thing never really took off the way it should, because people got to a point where, like, other than like 1 out of every 100 places, I'm not really getting a very good offer, which is one of the things Mike and I highlighted in the book, was the importance of creating a valuable offer, whether it was information, whether it was, a value, in-store, swag, whatever it was.
What's the big?
Aaron has a tattoo of a QR code on his bicep, and if you scan it, it gives you a picture of the tattoo of the QR code.
Exactly. It's
Let's
very
see
meta.
that. Let's see that, Don Ho. Where is that tattoo? Boom. That's nice. Only Melanie gets to see that.
Only Melanie gets to see it, exactly.
All right. Well, what is the big distraction right now that businesses are like? Is it Ella? What as marketers? Why are we distracted? Is it QR codes? What's on your radar, Aaron? What's the big distraction right now?
I don't think it's. You know what I think it is it's really this peso model: paid, earned, shared, and owned. And it's like social 3 or 4 years ago, where marketers started to pay lip service to it, but weren't really doing it. I think a lot more companies are doing social more effectively now. This whole concept of optimizing your paid, earned, shared, and owned activities, you're hearing a lot of lip service around it. I think people know that it's where they need to go, but they haven't quite made that leap yet, and they're still relying overly on their paid and not connecting the dots between, how important earned media is, so traditional PR or influencer outreach, shared media, and don't forget about your owned, right? Your apps or your microsites or your website.
And Paul, what do you think is the big distraction right now?
I think it's the continual transformation within the own platforms. I mean, it feels like there's always feature sets coming out with Facebook, Twitter, and as soon as small businesses or medium businesses feels like they get some sort of acumen, it changes again, and we continue to see that. Facebook is no longer actually even much of a social media platform anymore. In some ways, it's a paid advertising platform.
Yep.
That's true. And Mike, what's your big distraction? What do you think as marketers we're distracted by?
Drones. I'm always
I do like drones.
And Mike's soul patch. A lot of people are distracted by that.
Patch.
I blame Robert Scoble for the drone movement.
Drones are awesome.
Single-handedly?
Single-handedly. You heard that, Robert? Well, I thank you guys for coming on the show. There's lots more we could talk about, but we're out of time. So if somebody wants to follow you, Aaron, or they want to read about QR codes, maybe see that smoking tattoo you've got going on, how can they do that?
Smoking.
They probably won't see the smoking tattoo, but if you just follow me on Twitter, you can get all my bio information there, or you can check me out on the WCG blog.
And Paul, if they want to follow you, look into your company, whatever, maybe have some wine recommendations, how can they do that?
They can definitely ping me for wine recommendation. At P Mabray is easy, or at VinTank is also, or just the website, vintank.com.
And Schneider Mike, welcome again back to being, hopefully, we'll get you back on soon. But in the meantime, if somebody wants to follow you, check out what you're doing, how can they do that?
They can tweet me at Skyhook or at Schneider Mike, or go to skyhookwireless.com. You can see what I'm up to.
Or soulpatch.com as well.
Or hello.
I love that. Let's see that soul patch again.
Sharpie, give me a call. Call me.
Call me, baby.
Sharpie.
Tweet me.
I think I should do it. What do you guys know?
Yes.
I have a blue one. It wouldn't look real. Well, thanks, guys. I'd look like a Smurf.
Smurfette.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. Until next time, you guys have great marketing and great success on the internet.
Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tonya.
And that wraps up another episode of Marketing Mavericks. You can find us by going to YouTube, Marketing Mavericks, and catch our shows. You can also find us on the website at twit.tv. And you can find me. If you have some input on the show and you want to reach out on Twitter, I love Twitter. So feel free to contact me there at Tonya Hall Radio using hashtag Marketing Mavericks. You can find me on Facebook, wherever. But you know what? If you're old school and you want to email, that's all right too. You can email me at mavericks@twit.tv. Until next time, everybody, we'll talk to you then. How's Mike's connection there, Anthony? Oh my God, he's getting.
I like the soul patch. Oh yeah, we've completed the
dress code.
Yep.